Sometimes it takes a big disruption to really rethink how you do business from the ground up. And that's what we have right now, a very big disruption. I think as some judges who are hesitant about it see others doing it and see the reaction the public is having, more and more are going to come on board. We're not going to go backwards, that's for sure. This is going to be something that we will be doing in some of our dockets forever.
It seems as though, at least in the court hearings that I've been live streaming, that there are quite a few participants, just observers, especially the legislative hearing recently. There were something like 5,000 people watching at a time. And so I guess just generally speaking, what has the public reaction been? Are people excited to be able to watch this from home?
Yeah, that hearing was a perfect example. I mean, the truth is, in routine hearings, there might not be great public interest in tuning in and watching any single hearing. That one there is great public interest in, and there's no way, I think actually over 7,000 people tuned in at one point. There's no way 7,000 people could fit into a courtroom to watch it. Even if you had an overflow room in a courthouse, you couldn't accommodate that many members of the public. And when you live stream, it's scalable to infinity, of course. And so when you do have a case that folks are interested in, it's certainly a nice option. The public, though, generally, I think has found it, the transparency really a breath of fresh air. Again, I've heard anecdotally that folks have tuned in to watch dockets in different parts of the state and not stayed for too long because it turns out most of it is kind of boring. But
That's
just
fair.
the fact that you can watch and see what's going on in your local judge's courtroom has been met with a really positive reaction from the public. In addition to the public who's interested in transparency, we've had overwhelming satisfaction from litigants. And I think most lawyers, not all lawyers, I think some lawyers are finding it a little bit hard to get used to not being next to their client. There's something about being able to turn to your client and whisper something or communicate in the ways you do in person that is harder to get used to on Zoom, although Zoom can accommodate private breakout rooms for lawyers and clients, of course, but it's not exactly the same. But the litigants are reporting great satisfaction. They feel like they get more individualized attention in a remote hearing, and I don't know if it's because all the Zoom squares are the same size, right? Like everybody's equal in a Zoom hearing, or
yeah, that's true.
Or if people are just a little more used to communicating through their phone or their iPad, then courtrooms can be intimidating. In certain kind of cases, in particular, judges have been surprised at the ways the litigants have opened up kids, especially. So in cases where there are children, it turns out they're way more comfortable talking to their phone. They'll take the phone and they want to show the judge their room or show the judge their homework. And whereas in a courtroom, it can be quite intimidating for kids. So there are lots of efficiencies we predicted and expected. And then there are some other upsides that we didn't predict and expect, which is great.
What pieces of COVID-19 response and this virtual technology can adequately be transferred into a traditional courtroom setting?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is there's no way we're going back. It's not like once the genie's out of the bottle, and a lot of people are enjoying the genie out of the bottle, she's not going back in. So the efficiencies for lawyers and litigants, and frankly judges, in being able to do what they can through remote proceedings.
Could you just walk me through some of the challenges and some of the ways that trial courts are trying to get through this? Because it does seem as though the act of sequestering especially might be a little difficult if you're on your computer and not able to really keep track of that.
So right now, nobody's doing jury trials. There are no jury trials happening in person in Michigan, and there's an order in place that the court issued not allowing jury trials before the end of June at the earliest. And even then, it would depend on a courthouse's ability to have a plan approved to open safely. And even then, they'll need to be able to socially distance and that means they'll need a space that's big enough to be able to do it. So we, in the meantime, are piloting a jury trial by Zoom. It's a fake trial. We have one of a staff member at the Supreme Court Administrative Office is playing a criminal defendant. We have a real criminal defense lawyer and a real prosecutor playing the lawyers and a real judge playing the judge. And we went through a voir dire process last week. We had a lot of people watching to give feedback and answer surveys at the end of that piece of it. And then we're going to go through the testimony. And the idea is to be able to give again, best practices, support, and resources to trial courts as they want to give it a try. I mean, it's not going to be for every case. There are going to be criminal defendants, for example, who have constitutional rights, who can object to probably many parts of a trial by Zoom, but there will be others who want to proceed. You know, they want resolution of their case. And so we view it as our obligation to figure out how to help the trial courts do it for the litigants and the lawyers who want to do it. The remote hearings are just going to be an important part of what we do going forward. And frankly, figuring out how to make sure this is a way self-represented litigants can participate. Self-represented litigants, most of them do have phones. They might not have access to a laptop or a computer, but that's going to be one of the puzzles that I want to figure out, is making sure that this new way of doing business, if anything, increases access to justice, doesn't like further separate the haves from the have-nots. I think Zoom is actually working on how to make sure it can be a platform that is a reliable one for people who are blind. But there are going to be people with other disabilities who are going to have it, who are going to have a difficult time with remote hearings, and it's also the case that we have to accommodate people now in our live courtrooms, and we'll have to make sure that we accommodate people who need it in our remote courtrooms. That's our obligation. People need to have access to the same justice, no matter what the hardships are they show up with.